your reaction to these latest developments?
Well, first of all, once again, you forgot to remind your viewers about the like button. You're again becoming very otherworldly.
Well, I'm wearing the
Looking like
black
Iranian. Many of us wear black during this period because it's the period, the 40-day period after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet in Karbala. And then, of course, there's the martyrs for the war. So you're looking like an Iranian, Shia in particular, and now you're like
that was the
otherworldly. You
intent.
don't care. Don't press the like button. It's all okay.
Don't tell the United States government that I'm doing this, for Brandi. The
All right,
strategic black, the strategic black, sending a message.
yeah. Well, then the best thing to do is just ask people to press the like button so that they know you're worldly and you're still living in the real world, in the material world. So, yeah, I mean, everything really depends on the United States, and as we've been saying, as I've been saying, as others have been saying, this war does not have a military solution for the United States. And whenever we've been saying this since the beginning of the war, last year's war, uh, Western journalists don't like to hear that, and Western elites don't like to hear that. So every time they hit a brick wall, they go back to they go back to planning for another assault or another attack, and then the media again gets excited about all their great successes and so on, or their potential successes. But it's not working, and I think everyone sees that during the last 2 weeks or so, almost 2 weeks, that the Iranian attacks have become more precise, more devastating, much more painful. The United States is hiding its losses, no doubt. The Iranians are very confident that the U.S. losses are much higher. And the question is Trump going to double down? Or is he going to continue down the same path? Or is he going to do something different? I don't think he's going to walk away. It doesn't look like that at all, for the time being at least. If he does double down, if he does do what he claims he will do, then I think we're going to go very swiftly towards an all-out war, probably within hours. And that would mean, of course, Iran retaliates and destroys the critical infrastructure of the countries in the Persian Gulf. And that would bring an end to those countries. And I mean, if that happens, people in these countries should have their cars prepared. They should have gasoline. They should leave now. If anyone thinks that Trump is serious, they should leave now and go to Iraq, go to Yemen, I suppose. I don't know where the best places would probably be these two. I would say I used to say go to Oman, but now I don't know what's going to Oman anymore because Oman has been increasingly complicit in this war. It helped the United States create that corridor in the Strait of Hormuz that led to this fighting. That was, of course, violation of the MOU. So I think that we are in a very dangerous situation. And of course, if those countries collapse, then I think the markets they'll also collapse because there will be panic. Trump can no longer talk up the market. He cannot nor talk down the price of oil or anything like that. We'd be living in a completely different situation. And especially since until now, Trump and the Western media have been trying to hide the potential catastrophe that lies ahead. The markets and the oil markets, they haven't really reacted in the way that you would expect they would. which is understandable. I mean, we saw this for the last few months. The shortages are increasing, but the prices remain low, which is somewhat ironic because by keeping the prices low for this long, uh, Trump has prevented demand destruction, and thus consumption remains very high. And so, if suddenly shortages hit, then it'll be literally like hitting a brick wall. I don't know if Trump is going to do this. Maybe he will try to strike a few targets, bridges and power plants, and he'll quickly understand that the Iranians are dead serious. Now, of course, as you pointed out, the Iranians are saying that the American soldiers are hiding outside of their bases, and they're hiding in hotels and other buildings, and now they're warning people to stay away. So all hotels in the Emirates, in Kuwait, and Bahrain, these are now potential targets because enemy soldiers are working from there. They are carrying out their responsibilities from inside these buildings. So everywhere now is becoming more unsafe. The Iranians have also warned Americans that for every Iranian that's murdered, they will retaliate and kill an American soldier. It's clear that the Iranians are not going to back down. They're not intimidated, and that they will continue to fight back. And you sort of see that the Iranians have the upper hand. The reason, of course, being that the Iranians, they have an extraordinarily enormous amount of resilience, really unique, like Hezbollah, like Yemen. But also, they've been planning for this war for decades. Their key assets, as we've discussed many times, are all deep underground. And the US assets are all on the ground. They're in bases that were designed for the 20th century. And so the Iranians are hitting them. They retreat to Jordan. They hit them there too. And there's no way to hide. Whereas the Americans, they keep striking they keep striking Iranian missile bases to no avail. And since they get frustrated, they go and bomb civilian targets. They go bomb and terrorize ordinary Iranians. They bomb family cars driving over bridges and that sort of thing. So I don't know where things are going to go because I can't. I have no idea where Trump wants to take this. You could say maybe that his Truth Social post where he said, "I'm going to use Iran's assets for whatever damage Iran does as a way to back down from the threat of destroying critical infrastructure." But then again, maybe that's a meaningless interpretation because Trump is a person that you simply cannot interpret. I don't know. But Iran is prepared for an all-out war. And the axis of resistance is prepared. Yemen is already putting pressure on the Saudis, major pressure on the Saudis, whereas the Saudis are in trouble in the Persian Gulf. And the resistance in Iraq is completely prepared. They have a huge force between 100, 200,000 people under arms who are prepared to fight. And what do the Americans have? They have like Qatar. What's Qatar going to do? Or what's the Emirates going to do? Or what's Kuwait going to do? Nothing. So what's Saudi Arabia going to do? I mean, these countries will fall apart if Iran starts striking their critical infrastructure. Have no doubt that they'll just collapse. And these are deserts, and anyone could just look up the temperatures right now in these countries during the day and during the night, and the humidity, and they'll understand what will happen. And imagine U.S. troops, the tens of thousands of U.S. troops. Many of them are in these countries right now, and if there's no electricity, no water, what are they going to do? Can they stay put? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, to underscore that point, Professor Morandi, for those of us in the barbaric system of Fahrenheit in terms of how we reach degrees. This is Kuwait City, 109 degrees at this moment, and I think people should be very much aware that.
And what's the humidity?
Oh, I have no. What does that say? That says it says only 13%, but you know, I guess Kuwait is more further away from moisture, but nevertheless, 109 is incredibly hot, very dangerously hot, to say the least. So yeah, no, this is becoming a disaster. Well, Professor Marani, you mentioned the troops, the U.S. troops, and the numbers being likely, underestimated. The U.S. is literally reducing, like in real time, the numbers that they're counting. And already, they're only counting 18, but now the Pentagon has revised that to 14. And anonymous U.S. officials are saying that they did this literally yesterday, because 4 of those deaths occurred during the MOU period. So they're not going to count. That's make their families feel really good. That must make it all the more that must reverse the actual process of dying. But no, these troops were killed because of this, because of the U.S. war, because of Trump. So that's happening. And then, you mentioned what kind of moves the U.S. may make. Well, it seems like the media, this is just one of many articles, this is in Politico, in the West, that are talking about how airstrikes are reaching their limits. And now there's this plan, it seems like, to hit Pickaxe Mountain, and that's supposed to be this big escalation. But not even Israel has wanted to participate in this war up until this recent mobilization that appears to be happening in the region. So what do you make of this? The locations of U.S. airstrikes, they've definitely targeted civilian infrastructure. We've seen fishing boats literally docked, be attacked by CENTCOM, and then CENTCOM say it's the speedboats. But nevertheless, what would an operation that Trump is saying will be worse than Operation Epic Fury, what kind of consequences will that have? It seems like the consequences are not being considered very well, or very much at all.
Well, you're absolutely correct that they are targeting civilian boats, and they've destroyed many, and people live. They depend on those boats. Americans don't care. I mean, they bomb schools, they bomb hospitals, they bomb public bridges. Their pilots are very much, they're like the Israelis. They don't care, and they fire on pilgrims who are crossing the border from Iran into Iraq. I mean, that's just the way they think and the way they function. But if there is escalation, the Iranians will immediately respond in kind. But again, we're talking about, this is not going to be like the Ramadan war. It's not going to be like the 40 days of fighting. We're already seeing Yemen in a very different situation today. And Yemen has a very large missile and drone capability, and it has a very large and well-prepared army. This is a country that defeated the Saudis after 7 years, when the Saudis had the full support of the collective West and the region. The only country that supported Yemen was Iran. And after 7 years, the Yemenis began to destroy Saudi oil installations, and the Saudis gave up. They raised their hands and accepted a ceasefire. So, and then the Yemen had a war with the Americans, and that didn't go well for the United States. They didn't defeat Yemen. So now you have Iran and Yemen simultaneously. The United States did not defeat Iran. It failed. It failed against Yemen, and now both of them are active. And then you have Iraq with the Hashid, the Popular Mobilization Forces, the Iraqi resistance. They have been carrying out operations against Kuwait, because the Kuwaitis have been violating their territory as well, but also striking Iran through Iraqi airspace. So They are already becoming increasingly active. This is Iraq is huge. Yemen, huge. Iran, of course, is Iran. And then on the other side, what do you have? You don't have any armed forces that can stand up against these. And then imagine if the Saudis and these other countries, their critical infrastructure is destroyed. The whole peninsula will have to be evacuated. It's not. It will be a total disaster for the United States. It won't. I mean, we'll see the results within a couple of days. I mean, it would be catastrophic. You would see, you know, traffic through the desert trying to escape into Iraq, most probably. Yemen is. I don't know if that's doable. It won't. It will be catastrophic. So any the thing is that what's the next step? I mean, if there's escalation now, the the results are really beyond imagination. If you think about the potential results, it's hard to imagine what that would look like. And then when the images come out of the region that these countries, these oil and gas rich countries, are collapsing, and people across the world see those images, what's going to happen to the markets? The markets will tank. The global economy will tank. Oil will spike through the roof. Stock markets will tank, and there will be panic everywhere. I, it's a very scary scenario, I think.
Definitely a scary scenario, but one that is being ignored by the Trump administration. Let's get back into Unit 8200 of Mossad, Barak Ravid on Axios. This is the report that he launched today, saying that on Thursday, Trump told him that he's seriously considering restarting major combat operations, strikes that would be bigger than the ones carried out during Operation Epic Fury. And here are his exact words: "I'm considering a massive attack, bigger than ever before. I'm close to making a decision. We're all set for it." He said Israel would join in 2 minutes if I asked them to, but we don't need anybody, and that there would be consequences for Israel joining the strikes. And Randi, Israel is they are organizing themselves. The Israeli regime is organizing themselves for this. I believe they've opened up bomb shelters. They're beginning to get preparations going for what would happen if they did join the war. So it does seem like they will join in these strikes if they are to occur. But this is what Trump is saying. I'm curious, why is it, do you believe, that Trump is so keen on ignoring the realities of the war? Because even up until this point, I mean, when I report here, I don't even go into details about U.S. strikes because the U.S. strikes tend to be repetitive. They tend to hit very similar things, and and in large part, they're targeting either useless infrastructure Iran's not using anymore, or they're targeting civilian infrastructure. But Iran's targets have been much more notable because they're actually hitting military hardware, like pretty hard too, with satellite imagery proving it. So why do you believe that Trump is ignoring these realities? There seems to be a divergence between reality and these plans here.
I to answer that question. I don't know what goes on in his head. One interpretation could be that he is just trying to scare the Iranians and make them submit out of fear, but that's not going to happen. We saw during the 40-day war when he said that I'm going to obliterate Iran, I'm going to destroy everything. He said I'm going to send them back to the Stone Age. He said, obliterate the country. He said all sorts of things during the last, I don't know, couple, 2-3 weeks of the war. He kept threatening Iran, and Iran wasn't intimidated. And how could he carry out a bigger war than the war that he carried out during the 40 days? He used everything he had, and the Israeli regime was fighting side by side with him. So back then Iran wasn't intimidated, and he did back down. I mean, we all recall that when they struck Iran's South Pars gas field, the Iranians immediately retaliated, and one of the targets was the Qatari gas field. And Iran carried out a major assault and did huge damage. And then Trump immediately put out, or at least as soon as he found out, he put out a Truth Social post saying this is not going to happen again. Netanyahu is not going to do this again. Why? Because he knew what it meant. I mean, all Iran had to do is fire a few more missiles, and that is it. Qatar is finished. There's no more natural gas in Qatar for many, many years to come. Just one more major assault. And we're seeing how Iranian drones and missiles are all getting through. There's nothing left to stop them. And the Iranians have not even begun using they're using their old drones. They're still emptying out like the stuff that they made 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know. They're not using their high technology drones. I haven't seen any. Maybe they've used one or two here and there. I haven't seen any. So the Qataris, they could easily be destroyed. And the same is true with the Saudis and the Emiratis. So back then, Trump backed down. And till the end of the war, there were further strikes on infrastructure, but limited. And the Iranian responses were, of course, carried out. But this time, the Iranians are saying, if you strike, we're going to strike much harder. If you hit A, we'll hit A times 5, something like that. I don't recall exactly how they put it, but they're going to hit much harder. So does Trump recognize that? Is he just saying this to frighten the Iranians, or is he actually going to do this? Is he being pushed by the Israelis and the Zionists to do this? Is he, is it because he's compromised that he has no option? Because we all remember how Tucker Carlson, said that he spoke with Trump and told him that this is not going to end well. It's going to be very bad. The people who are pushing you hate you. And Trump's kept telling him, I know. He knew it all. Apparently, that's what Tucker Carlson was saying. And yet he still did it. So what does that say about Trump? He's it's hard to imagine that it's just about the donors. I mean, if he knew that was that bad, that it was going to be that bad, if we take what Tucker Carlson says seriously, and no one has denied his version of events, then he knew. So he's probably compromised. Is this what we're seeing now? Who knows? Or is it like what we saw during the 40-day war, where he made these crazy genocidal threats, and no one in the West protested, by the way, and yet he ultimately did not carry them out, and he was forced to accept a ceasefire. I mean, remember, during the 40-day war, at the beginning, he said unconditional surrender. And then by the end of the war, he was forced to accept the Iranian 10-point plan as the framework for negotiations. That means defeat. Just like after the siege warfare that he began after that, at the end, he had to accept the MOU, which was another defeat. Even though he didn't carry it out, but still, symbolically speaking, it was a defeat.
And as I was talking about yesterday with Pepe Escobar, I said, how is there any way possible for, it feels like the United States itself is, we often hear Professor Robert Pape talk about the escalation trap. It seems like the United States empire is literally trapping itself. Like it's not even a secret or hidden. It's that the United States, the Trump administration is behaving in a way which makes the MOU impossible to step back into, not only from the perspective of, the warmongers, the Zionists, etc., who hated the deal in the first place, but also from the perspective of anyone just looking at what's going on. How can you just do what the U.S. is doing and saying it's going to do, and then come back to an agreement like that? It doesn't make rational sense. And then Iran itself has no reason to trust the Trump administration at all ever again, which then leads to a very, I think, sticky situation when it comes to the eventual realities you were talking about, Professor Monty. What happens in the future if, the global economy gets a whiff of, oh, this thing isn't going to end, and actually the damage could be far more severe in not too short of a period, going into later summer months, and hell, talk about the winter months. Those are critical for capital. But your thoughts on this?
That's exactly why the Iranians are not interested in negotiations. They've been approached during the last couple of weeks many times by different countries, and Iran has said, go and speak with the other side. We're not the ones who started this war. We're not the ones who ignored the MOU. It was the other side that violated all of the articles of the MOU, including Article 5, where the United States set up its own corridor in the Strait of Hormuz in violation of the MOU, with the collaboration of the Saudis, the Emiratis, and the Kuwaitis, and the Qataris, and so on. All of these countries, all of these entities, working together to undermine the MOU, and Oman too. So, and Article 5 in particular. So the Iranians they have shown no interest at all about negotiations at the moment. But I'm not saying that this escalation trap, as they say, is wrong, but it's a part of it. It's part of it. The other part is the Zionists and the Israelis who are pushing for escalation. They need escalation. I'm not saying all Zionists want it. I'm sure Zionists themselves are divided in their genocidal policies and how to carry them out. But at least the faction that supports Netanyahu definitely wants an expansion of the war. They definitely want this to continue. They don't care about a global economic meltdown. They don't care if American soldiers are killed. They don't care if the American economy falls into a Great Depression, or the European economies. That is not a priority for them. They're Israeli firsters. So it is not just about an escalation trap. It is about an agenda that is being pushed by the Zionists to make sure that that the crisis gets worse and worse, and in the hope that somehow Iran and the axis of resistance will be defeated, and it won't. It won't. I think that it's clear as day what will happen. That the collapse will do much more harm to the United States and the West, and of course, it will eliminate their proxies across the region. Iran will survive, no doubt. So, it will do much worse for the United States. But the Zionists, the Israelis, Netanyahu, they're desperate. The situation in Israel is not good. Sometimes people ask me, why doesn't Iran strike Israel right now? Well, there are a number of reasons. One is the Iranians are busy fighting the battle of the Strait. That is its priority right now, because that's the key. And Iran does not want to be distracted from that. If they win, the Israeli regime loses. If they lose, which I don't see that happening, that's the biggest win for the Israeli regime. So obviously Iran is going to focus there. But also, Iran is busy destroying all those defensive layers that the Americans have created throughout the region for the Israeli regime. I mean, these missile and radar systems and so on, they were not devised to protect these countries, Kuwait or Saudi Arabia. It was all or Jordan. It was devised to support Israel. The king of Jordan is doing his best has always been doing his best to be Israel's goalkeeper, or bodyguard standing in the way to prevent anything from hitting the Israelis. Well, all that is being destroyed now. And the same is true in northern Iraq, which is dominated by Zionist proxies. So if there is a conflict between Iran and the Israeli regime in future, it's going to be much worse for the regime, because except for in Turkey, they no longer have these early warning systems. They no longer the radars. They no longer have those anti-drone and anti-missile capabilities. It's going to be different. And And in addition to that, with the crisis inside the Israeli regime and the elections approaching and the different parties at each other's throat, and based on what we are reading from the Hebrew press, this is a real crisis. And some even speak about a potential for a civil war and Netanyahu not accepting the election results. So why would Iran right now, when Israel is in crisis, do anything to rally people around, rally Zionists around Netanyahu or anyone else? If the Israeli regime strikes Iran, Iran will hit back very hard to make sure it hurts the regime and those who made that decision. But for the time being, I think Iran's priority is to destroy all those radar systems that protect the Israeli regime, all those missile systems that protect the regime, and to wait and see what the regime does itself. But the focus is on the Strait and, of course, a potential escalation by Trump.